Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am very happy that you've all tuned in again. In this video we're going to take a look at the concept of yin and yang. Where does it come from, what does it mean, and why is it so important? Coming right up. So recently I uploaded a short introduction video where I talked a little about why I decided to start my own YouTube channel and what this channel is going to be about. So please watch it if you haven't. This video right here is going to be my first actual content video where I discuss a specific topic. And since the name that I've decided to give this channel is Yin Yang Unity, seems only fitting to start things off by talking about the concept of yin and yang. Now, as I said in the introduction video, at this point my idea for this channel is to not only talk exclusively about abstract philosophical and spiritual concepts, but to combine talks about spirituality and philosophy with more practical topics pertaining to healthy and balanced holistic living and personal self-development. That being said, it does seem like a good idea to first lay a little bit of groundwork, if you will, and talk about certain fundamental spiritual and philosophical concepts in order to not only clarify what these concepts mean in general, but also to convey my personal take on these subjects and let you know where I'm coming from when I speak about these things. Because just like anyone else who talks about spirituality and such, I have my own personal perspective which might differ somewhat from what you hear from other people. So at first I think I will put out a series of videos that are going to provide a kind of broad overview of the territory that I intend to cover on this channel, and then perhaps at some point transition to more specific practical topics. But I think eventually it's probably going to be kind of like a mix of both, where I sort of go back and forth between the big picture, spiritual bird's eye view on one hand and more practical, down-to-earth stuff on the other. So, in a way, this is going to be the yin and yang of my channel, if you will. Which brings us very neatly to the topic of this video. So, let me start things off by reading a short excerpt from the Wikipedia article on yin and yang, which serves as a nice short introduction and summary of the whole concept. So the article says the following: yin and yang are a concept that originated in ancient Chinese philosophy and describes how opposite or contrary forces may create each other by their comparison and are to be seen as actually complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world, and how they may give rise to each other as they interrelate to one another. Yin and yang thus are always opposite and equal qualities and create and control each other. It is impossible to talk about yin or yang without some reference to the opposite. Traditionally, it is said that yin and yang are known by the comparison of each other, since yin and yang are bound together as parts of a mutual whole. Now, the most famous graphic representation of yin and yang is the Taijitu, which consists of a circle that encloses two similar but different shapes. These two shapes have the same form, which looks kind of like a water drop. Some people also say that they look a little bit like two fish that are swirling around each other. However, they do have different colors. One of them is white, while the other one is black. Now, I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this symbol. It is a very famous and popular spiritual symbol that is very well known all around the world, and for good reason. I mean, in my opinion, it really is the perfect symbol for existence, which really captures and distills the essence and the fundamental paradox of reality. You see, the Taijitu represents both the principle of contrast and opposition, as well as the underlying unity of all things. Now, in order to expand further on this, let's take a look at the original Chinese meaning of the words yin and yang and their representation in Chinese scripture. The Chinese character of yin is made up of two other characters that refer to the dark side of a hill, while the two characters that make up yang refer to the bright side of the hill, which already suggests that yin and yang are two opposite sides of the same thing. Kind of like two opposing sides of the same coin, right? And here's the real kicker. Without either one of those two sides, there can be no coin. I mean, try to imagine a coin with only one side. You can't? Well, of course you can't. A coin with only one side is an impossibility and therefore could not be experienced as an object. So you see, everything in this existence has a front side and a back side, a positive side and a negative side, a light side and a dark side, and they always go together. You just can't have one side without the other, right? So a thing always goes together with its opposite because everything in existence is defined by its opposite. And the Taijitu illustrates this perfectly because the only reason why you can see the symbol of divine universal unity at all is because of contrast. If you took away the color black, which represents yin, then what would be left? Nothing but empty white background, right? So take away the shape of yin and you automatically erase the shape of yang as well. And there's nothing left. Now, of course, when you look at an empty sheet of paper or an empty screen that shows nothing but white, you can still see that it's white because there's stuff around you that contrasts with the white square in front of you that you are looking at, right? But try to imagine a universe in which the only thing that exists is the color white. Now, answer this question. In such a universe, would the color white actually exist? I mean, really think about this. The color white can only exist if there's some other color in existence that serves as a reference. In the same way that you can only talk of a big tree in reference to a small tree. If there were only one single tree in all of existence, then could you call the tree a big tree? Well, big in reference to what? The quality of a thing can only be determined by comparison, which means that without big there can be no small. And the same goes for colors. White is only white in reference to black or any other color. And even the very concept of color itself can only exist if there are other concepts in existence that are not the concept of color. So you see, everything is always dependent on and defined by its opposite counterpart. Erase the opposite and you erase the thing itself. So, in essence, the appearance of non-unity, or in other words, the appearance of contrast, is the thing that makes the unity of the whole visible. Take away the contrast of black and white and there would be no Taijitu, no universal yin-yang symbol. And in the same way, God, or unmanifested reality, or whatever you want to call it, can only become visible and experienceable if it seemingly splits itself up into contrasting parts. Which is, of course, exactly why all of the stuff that you are looking right now exists. How else could the universe experience itself? So, you see, unity can only exist and be experienced in contrast to the appearance of non-unity. If you take away the appearance of non-unity, then what's left? No one would know what universal unity was without the complementary opposite phenomenon of non-unity. And the same goes for everything. In a world without hate, love would not exist. In a world without pain, pleasure would not exist. If you erased all kind of contrast from reality, the only thing left would be nothing. There would be no experience of reality, none whatsoever. It would just be pure formless nothingness without anything to experience, or anyone to experience anything. So, the price that you have to pay for having any sort of experience at all is that you have to deal with contrast. You want to experience love? Okay, then you have to experience hate too. You want to experience pleasure? Okay, then you have to experience pain too. You want to experience spiritual awakening? Okay, then you have to fall asleep first. See, you cannot know divine universal unity without its apparent opposite. That's just the way it works. Now, another image that you can use to illustrate the principle of yin and yang is the image of a wave, where there's always up followed by down. You know, think of a sound wave, for example, where the air particles are constantly swinging up and down and up and down and up and down. This is what creates sound. The up and down of the wave is the sound. So the constant interplay of up and down, the interplay of opposites, creates vibration. And vibration creates reality. You see, this is why existence is a roller coaster of ups and downs. It has to be, otherwise you couldn't experience it. So at this point you might say, yeah, okay, that's all well and good, but what is that kind of knowledge going to do for me? Isn't that just empty philosophical talk that has no real consequence for my actual life? I mean, knowing that everything in existence is defined by its opposite and that the ups and downs are a necessary part of existence isn't somehow magically going to eliminate the downs and the suffering that they cause, right? Sounds to me like you're saying that I should just accept that reality is inherently flawed and imperfect and a constant struggle. Because wherever there's contrast, there's conflict. And where there's conflict, there's suffering, right? But here's the thing. If you are saying that, then you haven't yet realized the incredible divine perfection of this seemingly imperfect setup of reality. You see, the deep realization, and when I say deep realization, I'm not just talking about intellectual understanding, but realizing with all your heart and soul and every fiber of your being that reality could not be otherwise than the way it is. Once you truly see the deep and inevitable and marvelous intelligence behind this whole design of reality, that realization is immensely liberating. And paradoxically, this deep understanding and acceptance of the way that reality is and must be designed will inevitably transform your life if you truly allow it to sink in and dissolve all of the resistance that you may have against life. In other words, once you understand and accept with your entire being that the interplay of yin and yang, the interplay of seemingly conflicting opposites, is the very thing that enables you to experience reality, once you truly see the divine purpose behind this whole yin-yang duality, you transcend it. Now, maybe I will do another video at some point where I talk specifically about the concept of transcendence, because transcendence is a very counterintuitive thing that I feel is being greatly misunderstood by many people out there. But for now, let me just say that you cannot transcend anything unless you accept it first. You see, a lot of people think, well, if I've transcended something, then that means I've gotten rid of it, right? But what I'm telling you is that you never ever need to get rid of anything. You just need to clearly see it for what it really is. Now, this right here is one of my fundamental spiritual axioms, if you will, so you will probably hear me say this a lot. You never need to get rid of anything. You just need to see it for what it really is. So, understanding the principle of yin and yang, truly understanding it, can have a massive impact on how you perceive reality and on how you live your life. See, it's the difference between playing a game without understanding its basic rules or even its purpose, and playing the game consciously, where you see the game for what it actually is and understand what it is about. And where you're just in complete awe of its amazing and brilliant design. I mean, which one of those two ways of playing the game of life will make for a better and more enjoyable gaming experience? What do you think? Now, another component of the principle of yin and yang is the idea of balance. Especially in Taoist philosophy and traditional Chinese medicine, there's a lot of emphasis on balancing out the yin and the yang so that one doesn't overpower the other. Of course, this idea is not only germane to Taoist philosophy. There have been countless spiritual and philosophical schools and traditions throughout the ages that have maintained that a happy life is essentially a balanced life. However, the balance between yin and yang is never a static balance where things are just frozen in a perfect equilibrium that never ever changes, but a dynamic balance where things are constantly in flow and evolving and kind of swinging back and forth in a universal harmony. Which means that sometimes yin is stronger than yang and sometimes yang is stronger than yin, but never to the point where one is completely cancelling out the other and thereby cancelling out itself. So, why is it that there is never a perfect static balance between the two? Wouldn't that be more harmonious than the constant back and forth? Well, think back to the example of the sound wave that I gave you a minute ago. The constant up and down, or back and forth, of the air particles creates the sound. So a perfect unchanging equilibrium where nothing ever moves to one side or the other would be quite literally lifeless. There just would be no signal and therefore nothing to experience, right? You can also think of a battery with a positive pole and a negative pole. See, the tension between the two opposite poles creates the electrical charge of the battery. And without this internal tension, the battery could not produce energy. And without energy there can be no life, right? Which means that without the perpetual tension between yin and yang, there would be no life, no movement, no form, no experience, no evolution, no anything. Life is only possible if there is constant movement, aka temporary imbalance. So living a balanced life means that you allow things to flow, you allow the pendulum to swing back and forth, so to speak, but in a balanced way, where the pendulum doesn't just fly off to one side and never returns to the center. You see, this is the great paradox of balance. It's kind of like a perpetual dance where things are allowed to move and grow and transform and evolve, which always creates temporary imbalance, and then naturally even each other out when the pendulum eventually swings back to the other side. But it never stands still. So there's another paradoxical duality for you. Balance is only possible through imbalance. Well, that's about all I have to share for now. The motives that I touched upon in this video, like balance and unity and contrast and the two-sided nature of all things, are probably going to be recurring themes that will come up again and again in future videos. And like I said, I also want to put out videos where I talk about concrete practical applications of these principles so that it's not just lofty abstract theory. But for now, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed my little introduction to the wonderful world of yin and yang. We will definitely dive deeper into the whole concept in upcoming videos, but for now I think I gave you a pretty good idea of the significance of yin and yang and how it relates to this amazingly colorful and adventurous experience which we call life. So, if you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.